Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2017 International Esports Federation 9th Esports World Championship. We are back with more League of Legends to close things out and finally decide who is the best nation at League of Legends this year at this competition. My name is Rapid. I'm here with Preacher, and we are going to be bringing you the finals of the League of Legends competition here between South Korea and Serbia.
And this is going to be one for the ages, Rapid. I cannot wait to get into this one. Both of them have had very hard-fought roads to get here, but they are finally here in the finals, and now we have to see which one comes out on top.
Absolutely. And, you know, really, for South Korea, they have owned this competition. You can see it just reflected. However, one big difference is that Serbia remains undefeated. They haven't dropped a single game this entire tournament. And while they have been on the opposite sides of the bracket from China and South Korea, two powerhouses this year, they have dominated. For Korea, though, they have taken out China, one of the strongest teams, one of the strongest rosters here at this tournament. They have prevailed, and while they did look a little bit mortal in that series, they still remain a historically strong esports nation and very strong players as well. All challenger roster there, but still some chance for Serbia as they have also looked very dominant this tournament.
Of course, you can never rule out the Koreans in any League of Legends event. However, looking over on the other side, the fact that there's an undefeated run for Serbia must speak to some of their strengths, right? Because we've seen what they are able to do. They're not just able to take it straight to Korea and say, look, we can play your way but better. They've got their own metamagic styles, and they are not afraid to show it on the live stage.
Well, that's what they're going to have to do, as we do have both of our teams lining up on the stage behind us, looking to get into this best of three. That's right, it is a best of three, so there is not a lot of room for error. We saw in our third and fourth place match earlier that a team like Israel that had a really rough start to the game in game number one was able to really bring it back and show lots more in game number two. Now, in the end, they did still wind up losing 2-0, and so the momentum is certainly there. It's a big factor. If you do drop that first game, you only have one more game to bring it back.
Of course, momentum is a factor. Mental fortitude is a whole nother factor. But also, you got to give huge praise to the unsung heroes, the coaches as well, because they are the people behind the players themselves, drafting, picking, making sure that they can understand what's strong on the other teams, not only champions, but also strategies, and hopefully accommodate that for their teams. I can only wait and see what they've got in store for us for this series.
I'm glad you mentioned the coaches, Preacher, because for our Korean roster here, their coach for this tournament is actually one of the former coaches for the Korean Pro League of Legends team, the ROX Tigers, or just the Tigers, or in whatever iteration their team was. One of, if not the strongest team in Korean esports right now. You know, they are a contender for the top level in multiple different titles, and so you have a coach with a huge pedigree coming in to guide them through this process. They're not the only team that has brought in a former, a coach with a lot of experience. Israel did that as well, and were able to show incredible performances, making it all the way to the semifinals, thanks in part to that effort. And of course, tonight for our Korean roster, they do still come in as strong favorites to win the tournament, just like Korea has in many years past. But for Serbia, they have always placed very highly there as well. From third place finishes the last 2 years, they come in to the grand finals ready to finish higher than they ever have before.
Of course, and they're looking to finally push their boundaries and potentially win the very first championship for their country. Now, it is, of course, a little bit of an uphill battle, but I do believe that it is not something that is impossible. It is certainly on the horizons, and one person who's hoping to do it is the jungler. Now, we've seen a whole lot of very early stuff come out from this guy. He is very young, he is very aggressive. I don't expect to see many Sejuanis. I don't expect to see many Maokais or any other Gragas's. I only expect to see the very hard and heavy Nidalees and Ezreals go in very fast.
Nidalees, Ezreals, I was watching him play just some solo queue. He's hitting some Kazakhs, mixing some of that in there, just non-stop aggression. And I think the jungle is going to be a very defining role for this series, just like it was in our previous best of three for the third and fourth place match. You really got a chance to see junglers like the Chinese jungler Brave, who was was just incredible to watch every single game, putting up huge numbers. The same thing is going to be true for both of our teams here in the grand finals. They both took different paths to get here, but still looking very, very strong coming into these finals. And while we work through a few technical difficulties back behind us, we are still progressing forwards towards deciding which team, which country will take first place in the IESF 2017 World Championship League of Legends competition.
It's always a tongue twister, but there are many paths to get here. And speaking of paths, that is one thing that I'm sure everybody will keep their eyes on. The pathing of the jungler is very early on. It is a complete mismatch of styles. You got the Korean jungler. He just wants to make sure that he can control vision, know everything on the map. It's like they're playing with map hacks, only legally in this current tournament.
Called brains.
Of course, you know, if you keep your eyes on the mini-map at all times, you know what's happening at all times, and it's actually allowed in the tournament. But going over to the other side, that is not how Serbia want to play this one. They want to go hard, they want to go fast. It doesn't matter whether it's camping a lane, it doesn't matter whether it's camping the enemy jungler inside their own territory. They just want to make sure they have an impact for themselves on this map.
They certainly do. Currently, they want to have an impact on the condition of their peripherals. So they're still waiting on plugging everything in. And you know, you think that that's pretty easy advice to give. When I was working tech support, I always used to tell people to plug and unplug things. They're working on that while we work on setting things up for our first match in this grand finals. You know, I got to say, like we said, that Korea does still come in here as a favorite, but they're, like you said, very different styles that both teams are going to play. For Serbia, they play primarily based on their own individual strengths, I would say, at least from a couple of the games that I got to see. We got a chance to watch them play versus Romania, and while they did look pretty evenly matched, Romania brought a very strong team. In fact, I believe that Romania finished, third just under, or actually, third just under Serbia and Sweden, which also then fell to them later on in the tournament. So very, very strong showings there, even against the players that, or even for the players that Serbia were able to beat. But they did it through individual skill. A lot of times just hard winning lanes and moving forward from there, and you're like, oh wow, well, you know, if they can just win the lane phase, everything just sort of falls together, right? Whereas for the Korean roster, they've been doing things very methodically, and it might be a little bit of a pitfall, because I want to talk about something that we've seen. Lots of methodical play, lots of, you know, executing play styles, lots of macro control, and you're like, okay, well, this is everything I expect from a team with a lot of coordination. But there's something that happens, and it happened last year as well in the semifinals. You have these players for the team. They kind of get a little bit antsy, want to go for style points. And sometimes that happens in Champion Select. Last year, we had a player, I think his name was Ming, and he played support Yasuo 3 games during that tournament. Or maybe it was just 2 games, but still, it's like, you know, you think that that's like, I don't know, but you windwall the enemy AD carry and they can't see us in lane. It's like, oh, I
mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. If you can't get any gold, then that must be a very tilting factor coming into this.
Well, this Korean roster also has a Yasuo or 2 at their disposal. And they bring it out in situations where they think that they have an overwhelming advantage, and sometimes it doesn't work out. So we still got to keep an eye on that, but for now, we are looking forward to getting into our first game. You see our Korean representatives there, both in the booths and in the crowd. Plenty of hometown cheers for them, or at least that's what we expect there. And of course, with them being the favorites here, there's a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum coming in here. They did drop a game to China, though, so it might have helped them sort of get a little bit of a reality check and say, hey, you know, gods can bleed. We still need to bring this home, take 2 more wins, and close it out for Korea.
Yeah, of course. And I quite like how you bring up the stylistic plays that differentiate these 2 countries. I mean, you got Korea, who play very smart, who play on the map, who play very vision heavy, and almost like a starvation method, how they're not going to style you out, or they could with the Yasuo picks every now and then, but they're just going to make sure that they get more resources than you, and then eventually win by throwing their money at you and sort of chipping down your health that way. But over on the other side, you know, it's very individual skill reliant. It's very matchup reliant, as determined by the lanes. And that's actually very interesting, because normally when we come into this tournament and this patch in general, we would say blue side has a distinct advantage. You get a first pick. You get a plethora of what you can pick for your side. You pretty much shape the whole game from that point onwards. But in the case of Serbia, they can do very well on red side, because they get the very last counter pick. They can counter pick all of their lanes, and that works towards their favor of winning the game.
Yeah, as far as I know it, this is the last tournament that will be sort of League of Legends as you know it. If you are used to playing with lots of different runes and rune pages, well, you gotta get it while you can, because as soon as this ends, most tournaments go back to the current preseason patch where really anything is possible. So yeah, we get a chance to see kind of the last bastion, one final run for the way that League of Legends has been played for quite a while. But this is 3 patches after Worlds, so there's plenty of adaptation that teams need to do in preparation for these grand finals. And it does appear as if we have prepared adequately for the grand finals, which should be coming up on our way. We have the players, as you can see, right over there and over there.
Yeah.
Yep, they're lining up on stage and getting ready for our opening ceremony. And here we go. The players and the teams on opposite sides of the stage, and as our referees explain to them what it is exactly like to shake a hand, we'll see whether or not they can execute it. Of course, executing a game is one thing, but you have to get there first. And so this is the struggle, the trials that await our professional players. But of course, all jokes aside, it's great to see these overtures of sportsmanship, always a very key part of participation in international esports events like this. So nice to have some friendly gestures on and off the ref.
Exactly, and here is the Fable handshake that we were talking about. Now they finally get to enter their boots and finally play after looking their opponents in the eyes. I do believe that these are 2 teams that don't quite communicate as much as some of the other teams inside of this tournament, so that might work against them or that might work towards their favor, because if you don't really talk to them, you don't really give away any strats, and that could honestly go either way. I mean, if we're talking about cheese picks, if we're talking about things that are so unconventional that they're not just unmeta, they are out of the meta, then that could potentially catch either team by surprise.
We've seen quite a bit of it, even just in our previous series. We got that Game 1 Katarina.
Yeah.
It looked okay. And many of the picks that we have sort of marveled at are have not really excelled so much that they give their team just a totally free win. So if you've got some surprises, it's okay to pull it out, but you still have to have the fundamentals that it takes to close out a best-of-3 series like this and be able to perform in the high-pressure situation of the grand finals.
Yeah, of course, and that pressure really does have to be weighing on these guys. I mean, this is pretty much the last series that you play at this entire tournament. This is do or die. This cements your place in the tournament. This cements your legacy, in fact, for a whole year until IeSF comes back. So both of these 2 teams, they want to do the best that they possibly can.
They certainly do. And for many teams, it's not just about their individual or their performances here at this tournament. It's what happens after this. This is a great thing to put on your resume. It's a great sort of boost when you go to apply for kind of the next step in your esports career. Applying for teams, applying for sponsorships. All of it is kind of made possible by big wins in high-pressure situations that illustrate to teams and sponsors and to just your country, your friends, your family, that you have what it takes to be a champion. And that's what both of our teams are fighting for here today. So without further ado, I do believe that we are ready to go. Both teams have entered their booths, and I believe their peripherals are all set up. We have a round of applause for something totally unrelated, but I'm going to pretend it's for this game because it is going to be so exciting.
It's for us, We've been bantering for quite a while. We've been setting up this event, but, really the people who are going to make a run are the people in the booths, and we should be able to get into the game really soon. I cannot wait to get into Champion Select in specific, because if we're ever thrown any curveballs, then I want to be ready to intercept them.
Well, I won't be able to catch them at all. I don't have my little mitt there, and I'm not going to risk my delicate hands, man. My wrists were not made for baseball or catching really anything, but we can certainly talk a little bit more before we prepare for this grand finals. I'm not really sure exactly what to expect from either team, and because these teams have come from opposite sides of the bracket, they haven't played each other. They were both first placed in separate groups, so this is the first time that they get a chance to come out against each other here in the grand finals. So while we are looking for sort of hallmarks of their plays, both of these teams, and even both of the teams that we saw earlier in the 3rd and 4th place match, there's a lot of kind of cool detective work going on during these matches, whether it's talking to teams who have played other teams, and maybe now we have the Serbian team going to Google and typing in how to ask which champions we should ban. And I don't know if Translate is going to really cover that, but they're going to be trying because every little bit helps.
Of course, as many jigsaw puzzles as you can possibly get to get the whole picture sorted, to make sure that you can get through this pick and ban alive, because after that, as a coach, your hands are off. Your hands are off the table. You tell your team, this is the strategy we're going for, and they should have to go for it. Now, that's actually the most important thing, because it's going to be a mismatch once again between Serbia and Korea. And a lot of these teams that come up against the Korean squad, they say that they feel very nervous. You know, usually when you ask them, how's your matchup before? They say, oh yeah, we're going to win it easily. I don't believe I've heard anything other than that. But when they go against Koreans, they always say, oh yeah, I reckon this one's going to be tough. I reckon that this is going to be an uphill battle. I'm not feeling too good about it. The best thing that you can possibly do if you are in the shoes of Serbia is to just do what you've already rehearsed before. Play with nameplates off. Play this as if you were playing literally any other game, and don't give in to their strategy. Don't play so defensive that you're not actually making any proactive plays at all.
You know, there is a lot of respect for the Korean esports community, specifically here in League of Legends, a game that they have dominated for a very long time. But like you said, you do have to kind of give that respect, but not, you know, over-invest in, you know, maybe psyching yourself out a little bit. So I think that for by and large, the players that have played against Korea have all had a great mindset. The Chinese team, of course, certainly felt very good about picking up their win and having a very close series. And here for Serbia, I mean, if you're good enough to make it to the grand finals, regardless of the teams that you play, you're good enough to put up a fight here. And I mean, that is truly what we have to watch out for as we get into our first game of our grand finals match for League of Legends here, the 9th Esports World Championship here in Busan, South Korea. Champion Picks and Bans now underway.
And right now, we have to see what they got in store. Now, Serbia has got red side, so like I was talking about before, this could most certainly help them out, but they need to get through the ban phase first. And in order to do so, they've got a few that they need to put on that are just formalities. So, of course, Kallista's one of them. If they don't want to pick a Jarvan or a Galio, they need to invest bans into those as well.
An immediate Soraka ban against Tasteless. Had to get all the letters in there, but he's not going to be able to play Soraka this time around, or Lulu, or any of the other support champions. They're just going to go one by one, banning every Ardent Sensor champion they can possibly find, and then at least one of the players for Serbia's team is not going to have a good time.
Well, you know why they had to ban these two champs, right? It's because Lulu, everything takes purple to her, and Soraka just throws bananas. So Tasteless, he's not going to have a good time with his palette any way that you shape it.
And when you mix the colors of Taeguk together, they do form purple. So, you know, that's something that Lulu would be too happy about. Got to take it out of the way there. The ban on Xayah there as well might have something in mind. So we'll see what the final ban is here. I'm guessing it's either Jarvan the Fourth or something to target ban against this Korean roster.
Yeah, and that's going to be really tricky, because if you ban Jarvan, they take Sejuani. If you ban Sejuani, they take Jarvan. There's also a Galio to throw that into the 3 mix. So if they decide not to ban anything and ban this very strong 100% pick and ban rate champion, then all of a sudden anything can happen for Serbia's first 2 picks.
And there is the Alistar for Arcane, a champion that he has kind of gone to once again for that playmaking potential. You just got to get in there and make something happen. Nobody does it quite like Alistar.
No, of course not. And we've seen the huge strength that Alistar has, you know. He is just engaged on command. People like Malphite Ultimate. Guess what? Alistar has a Malphite Ultimate every 6 seconds at maximum cooldown. So this is one champion that you certainly can't pass up. We've seen Arcane do massive amounts of work with this Alistar, and I expect him to do the same right now. His next pickup, though, for his team should be an ADC and a jungler. It's all formalities.
That's right. We do usually see ADC support and jungle picked first in the first rotation. The Caitlyn is the lock-in for the AD carry on Serbia's side. On Korea's side, they forego the AD carry in the form of persistent damage from Azir. And we've already seen one incredible Azir performance in our first series from Israel. Now we're going to get a chance to see what it looks like in the hands of Gori.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see that, because this Azir has been so dominant. He's been on the ban list for so long, and now he's finally unleashed. They pick him up, but immediately, rather than picking up a support, they go for a counter pick at the Castle. Now, this is very tricky for the side of Korea to sort of determine, to sort of decipher, because this Jarvan could either go top or it could go into the jungle, and if they haven't quite done their homework, then these bans are going to be hard for them.
Yeah. So now we come into the second ban phase, so you're probably going to see a lot of AD carries banned here. And there you go, 2 right off the bat for Serbia. Anytime you sacrifice picking an AD carry, a support, or a jungler in your first rotation, you're going to see that role kind of punished in the second ban, just because those are, I guess, some of the more limited roles.
They most certainly are, and in terms of the top picks that you have available for yourself, there's a very small pool. You know,
Right.
if you expect to, if jungle pools expand in later patches, then potentially you would see top be one of the priorities, but that's just how it goes, and they actually want to round it out with the Morgana, which is a very unusual support that we haven't seen in quite a while.
Absolutely. When you look at your opponent's first 3 picks, and they all have CC and magic damage, the Kassadin and Morgana both work pretty well against that. Korea recognizes that, and so their 4th pick is a Jace for Kimchi.
Yeah, that Jace. I mean, this is just Korean aggression through and through. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it with Cupcake in the previous series, but Kimchi just wants to play this lane bully, and he wants to just ram it straight into the enemy. You've already got 2 tanks and 2 engages in the form of Alistar and also Sejuani. There's no reason why you need a 3rd in the top lane. Why not just put him on a Jace and bully out the top side? This actually puts a whole lot of pressure on the Jarvan, so Serbia might want to rotate it into the jungle and pick up another top laner.
Certainly might. The last pick is a Shen. So shields on shields on shields. Everyone but Caitlyn has one. And I'm sure she'll be the recipient of quite a few. We'll see if this is an interesting composition from Serbia, because it looks a lot different from Korea. They both have much different objectives, but these are our final picks. What is your analysis of both of these team compositions?
Well, looking at it right now, you got to say that Korea has a slight edge simply because of the Sivir pickup. It's a very unique pickup, but it's a greedy pickup in the sense that she needs about 3-4 items before she can really start ricocheting everybody in the entire enemy team. Before then, it doesn't actually do that much damage, and she's very low output. However, that is very nicely compensated by the Azir in the mid lane. You got to take a look over at Serbia's side. It most certainly can execute when we're talking about the 10-minute mark, fighting around dragons, fighting around Rift Heralds, because you got the Shen, because you got the Stand United, and also because you got the trap that Jarvan provides to really just lock everybody down while Kassadin and Jarvan try to rip them up.
Picks and bans are done for game number 1, but it is just about to begin our grand finals here in Busan for the 9th Esports World Championship for League of Legends. Serbia facing off against the defending champions in South Korea So lots of action, lots of hope on the line for both rosters as we get here loading into game number 1. You can see our players, our skins, our champions on your screen. When we return, we will be into our first game in this grand final series. Music getting hype along with everyone else as we enter game number 1. Korea, your players on the blue side of the map. Serbia on the red to start off our first game.
And already, Rapid, I am just a little bit tilted because it is, of course, the Mukau Alistar skin. You know that he occasionally bursts into
Everybody
song.
needs more cowbell.
Yeah, but you know what everybody else needs? A little bit of security. So this fan out means that nobody is going to spot anybody else out. This is, of course, the finals for IeSF, the 9th Esports World Championship. So nobody here really wants to lose the game or get a huge disadvantage off the bat from an early game invade either way.
Certainly do not. And so, at least for me as a commentator, I'm always about the 5-man invades, tons of action level 1, 10 deaths by 2 minutes. That's what I'm looking for. Neither one of these teams are looking for that. They have very defensive starts on both sides of Summoner's Rift, but as minions spawn and make their way towards lanes here momentarily, that is going to be when the action really starts. We will not have that happen just yet, as apparently there are some either headphones or sound issues that we have to resolve before heading into our first game. And with those having been resolved, it looks like we are at least headed generally in that direction. You know, it's not where you are, it's where you're going. And
I mean, you always got to keep your eyes on the prize. Everybody's looking forward. Everybody is just thinking about how exactly they could potentially execute. One way is certainly not in the early game. You don't want to clump up against an Alistar. That is always a sign for doom for either of these two teams. I mean, if you're going into an Alistar 5-man knockup, all of a sudden you're in a bit of trouble. If you are the Alistar, you need to burn a flash in order to get into the enemy team, so they want to all play a little bit too safe. But speaking about these actual objectives they want to set up, it's going to be really tricky for the Korean team if they want to go into the mid game. The mid game is going to be the weakest element per se, because you've got a Sivir who's not really going to be doing much work. She's really just an ult bot, so you press R and you wait for your Alistar to enter and do all of the hard engages. And the Azir just takes forever to set up along these objectives. If they get the inside track and get there first, it might be a little bit better for them. But in order to do so, that's a huge question mark that can't really be answered.
Yet. We will have the answer to it eventually. As much as we can kind of theory craft about the way that this game will start, it has to do that in order for us to get a little bit more information. You were talking about keeping the eyes on the prize, and for the Korean team, they literally have to do that because the trophy for the IeSF World Championship here is right in front of them. You can see it there on your screen, and pretty soon you'll be able to see us on your screen as both of our teams look to get things sorted out. It appears as if our issues are resolving themselves, so we should be able to get back into our first game here just momentarily. I'm excited for it. I'm ready for it. I want to see this game, and here we go.
This is a very typical start coming out from everybody. I don't think that any of these items are so out of the way that you would question any of them. The only real big question that I have is on Tasteless build. So usually when Spell Thieves Edge was first buffed to the point where people considered it a very strong item, Morgana put a point in her W as a free money button. You put your W down on the enemy and you just get a whole lot of gold from Spell Thieves Edge. But at the current moment, her binding and also her Black Shield got nerfed to the point where you need to get a lot of points in Black Shield before it's really properly effective. So generally, Morganas have to go 2 points in Q and 2 points in E. I'm really curious as to see if she puts any point in her W at all. As a support Morgana, it generally doesn't make that much sense anymore. So it'll be very interesting to see whether she prioritizes that or whether she prioritizes gold generation.
Talked about the supports, the 80 carries. It's going to be an interesting matchup here. Love to see the Sivir as a reaction to the Caitlyn. You get 3 mana every time there's a trap in your way. Of course, on the other side, Caitlyn still does what Caitlyn's do best, and that is shove waves and push turrets, and that's exactly what you see here from Serbia to start off the duo lane.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to always play into against the Caitlyn, but here's an early game.
Flash for flash, tons of damage going down. It's first blood for Stefan Sama in the jungle for Serbia.
And that was just a level 2 gank. I mean, that was coast to coast. He went from his blue to the enemy red, all the way into the mid lane, picks up first blood, and he's more than happy to go. On the other side, Chang, he's picked up double buffs accordingly as well, but he's just a little bit slower to the rotation, so the only thing he can pick up are the scraps of the minions that are crashing into mid lane's turret.
He will have to get some of that. That's a cannon minion wave. That matters a lot, especially in the early game. This is Azir versus Kassadin, and so while Azir might, you would think, have the range versus melee advantage, Kassadin is picked into this for a reason, and that is because he does have that magic damage shield. He is able to survive, and especially as the game draws later and later on, has that really Kassadin assassination potential.
Yeah, I mean, the whole deal at Kassadin lane is just to make it until 6. If you can make it without dying, then all of a sudden you've won the lane. And
hang on.
Oh, yeah, level 6, and it actually works out really well for him. 10% damage reduction from his passive from magic damage means that Azir's not actually going to be poking out that much because Azir's early game was what was hit the most, so it's working out really well, but hey, top lane is not working out very well for Clowney up here.
He was dangerously close to picking up first blood. Okay, he's going to try for the shot class. He's not going to find it. Bottom lane, a beautiful Black Shield there onto Bloxy. Going to stop him from getting CC'd by Chang as he comes down. Finally, we'll land that little cheeky stun, but it's underneath the turret, so it won't really matter.
Yeah, that's one of the best interactions about this entire bottom lane. The fact that Morgana can put the Black Shield on, and for the entire duration, it cannot be broken by Sejuani. The fact that Bloxy can just walk as far back as he needs to be. Yeah, sure, you can get the stun eventually, but she's already on the turret. There's no way that you could do it.
Look at Stefan Sama. He is going for the Mind Destroyer. If you crush the mentality of a mid laner, ganking him over and over again, I mean, that you're going to get a lot of dividends from that as the game progresses. He's still sticking around, but finally heading back out of that mid lane.
Exactly, and Stefan knows exactly what the priority on this map is. It's getting Azir to the point where he can't actually do damage come these mid-game fights, come these Dragon, Rift Herald, and Baron fights. And if you can make sure that Azir doesn't have it, guess what? Sivir naturally doesn't have it either. So they're going to be lacking a lot of damage on the Korean side, and he's just making very smart plays, denying a whole lot of CS simply through his presence.
Yeah, it makes sense for him to be there, and it's being effective. Even if it's not paying off for kills, you can't just look for the big numbers to tell the whole story. I mean, if you look at the smaller ones, Serbia with a 200 gold, okay, that doesn't matter either, but at least it is a very even start to the game. Neither team has really been these huge playmakers, and honestly, it's Serbia that's picked up first blood, so they do have that tiny advantage just to start things off.
Yeah, it's going to work out a little bit in Stefan's favor. You can't really count the CS differential in the jungle because, of course, we mentioned it before. It's a very misleading number. You can take Raptors, you can take a whole lot of other things, but it seems to be caught in the jungle as they just scuffle a little bit. Should be able to get away.
Yeah, nice blast cone. Love the addition of the jungle plants. I remember way back in a preseason, far, far away, long, long ago, there was a lot of conversation about what kind of effect those would have. And I think it's really cool to see them dynamically impact games like this. Now, Stefan, I think, I'm not sure if he's within range, but he certainly can go the distance. Kimchi's coming around. Chang is right there. Oh my goodness. Jay's so low, but the CC coming through. There's a flash through, and it's an infinite blocking coming through for just a few more seconds. Stefan's on very, very low, and he will go down there. Kimchi takes the kill. Clowney just trying desperately to make it back to the turret. The stun comes in the last second. Clowney about to go down. Will he go for the dive?
Clowney
help there, and he does go for it. Kimchi, a sliver of health. Korea survives the dive.
You are kidding me. That was the perfect response coming out from Chang, but also perfectly executed from Kimchi. He didn't actually use To the Skies on the Clowney. He used it on a minion to make sure that the AoE would have hit him just outside the range and then walk back out to safety by only taking one turret hit. That was about as well as you could possibly execute that entire 2v2 on the top side.
Beautifully played here by our South Korean representatives, a dominant pedigree year after year being so strong in this tournament, and they continue to impress. Plays in the top lane, just so crisply executed. And so now we look towards the rest of the map to see where Serbia can bring it back.
And you hopefully have to keep your eyes around the bottom side of the map, because when we talk about the lack of damage coming out from the Korean bot lane, we also got to talk about the early game presence that is here from the Serbian squad. They've got a Caitlyn, they've got a Morgana. If they can land a binding, free damage for days. If they don't land a binding, they can still shove all the way to the turret. They can still do massive amounts of chip damage to the turret with every single wave. But the way that they play, the safety that they give to this game is really inhibiting them from doing it. You can take a look on the mini-map. There's a ward in the tri-bush to make sure that Sejuani's not nearby, but they're still not pressing the issue down there just as quickly.
Not pressing the issue here, but one person who is pressing the issue is Kimchi's Jace in the top lane. You can see Clowney just having an absolutely miserable time. Kind of interesting to see him pick up boots, maybe to make it back to lane faster, but at this point, you just need every defensive option you can find. He doesn't taunt Kimchi in turret range quite yet, but he's at least trying to play not totally defensively.
Yeah, the best option that you could have as a Shen in this matchup is to get Ninja Tabi very early on. It allows you to dodge out the accelerated shock blast. It also allows you to negate a whole lot of the damage coming out from the hyperdrives. But when you think about it, you've just invested a whole lot of money into movement speed as well. So it is really a lose-lose situation either way. You don't have a great time as Shen into this as a solo kill comes out.
I mean, yeah, you can call it maybe a 2v1 with Chang's presence there, but he was just really there to, clap his hands and give some applause. Kimchi taking Clowney down in a 1v1.
Yeah, that is just what happens when you don't quite complete the item. You can see that Clowney is so conflicted in his inventory at the current moment. You got a refillable, you got some boots, you got some armor, you got some HP. But they don't really go into anything. You haven't built your Ninja Tabi yet. You haven't built what presumably would either be your Thornmail or your Sunfire yet. So there's no way that you can really retaliate. And in the bottom lane, Stefan's coming.
Yeah, level 6, though, is hit. It's a big dunk down, and that'll be good enough for Stefan to pick up a kill. Now, Hazeless needs to be a little bit careful. He has the ult running for just a second. He is not going to press the hunt any further. Wow, incredible reaction there by Serbia, and they're looking for more.
Yeah, 2, 1, and 0 for Stefan. He is ready to influence the map, and that was a very tasty stake that should have allowed him to potentially get the confidence that he needs to influence the rest of these lanes. He's already gained bottom lane, and he's picked up an Infernal Drake for his team, which is possibly the strongest one that you can have for this team composition with the Cassidy, with the Caitlyn as well. Next one's going to be Cloud, and they've already got the inside track on it.
They certainly do. I mean, Inferno Drake is a buff that, because it's percentage-based, it doesn't really kick in until later on, but it's nice to have that knowing that as the game scales, so will you.
Yeah, exactly. Especially into this sort of composition in which Siva takes forever to come online. But when she does, oh boy, you should be in ready for a world of pain. And Azir, as long as he gets his 2 items, you know he's going to be doing damage. It's a ridiculously quick first brick, though, in the top lane. And I really think that Cloudy needs a little bit more help than he's currently getting.
I think you kind of had to accept that coming through. Losing that top turret actually going to be not terrible for Clowney. It allows him to, stay a little bit further back at his own turret, farm things up underneath there, but this is kind of letting Kimchi run a little bit rampant, and that can start to be really scary when you look at just how strong this Jace has become. 3 kills, almost 100 CS, and we're only 11 minutes in.
Yeah, and that's the most punishing thing, because when you're thinking about Shen just getting some free CS under his turret, some free experience, yeah, it works out really well for him, but what's the expense? The expense is allowing Kimchi to move around the map to harass Stefan out, and most importantly, to visit the mid lane to harass Boxer. Boxer cannot do anything against physical damage. Here's the dive.
Oh, Clowney flash for flash, but out from under the turret, Kimchi goes the distance to the skies into another kill. 4-0 the start for the now Youmuu's bladed up Jace in the top lane.
Yeah, this is just a little bit ridiculous. They finally traded the bottom lane for a turret, but Kimchi, while he's not going to get this one, he's going to get a massive amount of chip damage onto it. It's going to be under constant threat. Multiple members have to go towards it. It's fortunate for Serbia that they could bust down the bottom turret, but in mid,
got gank in the mid lane here. It is a level 6 Cassidon, so a Rift Walk, flash out. Their Sand Soldiers not quite in range to pick up the kill, so Serbia survives in the mid lane, but not up top. That turret dead off of just that push. An incredible reaction. Corey stopped from recalling. Boxer are pretty confident, but Korea just destroying the top lane so hard. Is there a way that Serbia can make up the difference elsewhere on the map?
Well, it's going to be a very tall order in order to do so. They've already rotated their lanes, and you should expect Korea to follow suit. In the mid lane, they want this fight, though.
Nice black shield there. Tasteless able to save Boxer just long enough to make it back to the turret alive, so Serbia survives once again. But, elsewhere, there's a storm a-brewing.
Yeah, you can see that Ploxy is farming up the top lane just fine, but he is in the longest lane in history. If he gets caught out, there is quite literally no track to home other than straight through 2 turrets that are already dead, and there's also a Rift Herald that has been taken by the Korean squad. This is a very difficult situation for the very first game of Serbia in this finals. You can already see that they have to play defensive because of the double turret in the top lane. This is not a good track.
There's no help for Clowney. Keep in mind, let's talk about the Serbian League of Legends roster that we have here. This is Stefan. This is a guy that we got to see dominate on Nidalee earlier on in the tournaments for Serbia. He's still playing a sort of a luxury aggressive jungler in Jarvan that you really hope to get but can't necessarily expect to have. He hasn't. He's been putting in a lot of work for Serbia, but he's kind of the member that has excelled the most, and Clowney is on the other end of the spectrum. You would think that maybe you would have some help there, but I think the decision here from Serbia is correct to say, okay, we have a player that's struggling. He's just going to struggle. We want to find an advantage somewhere else in the game.
Yeah, the correct call is simply to let him go in the mid lane, though.
A perfect ult landing there from Chang. Still a very mobile Cassidy with a Shen ult on top. It's going to help him try to escape there, but Boxer, does he have the escape mechanisms he need? No, gets swiped down there. Chang taking him out. Kimchi coming around the backside of the turret. Shock Blast won't be enough for the kill, but Gory will follow it up. The alley-oop gets given to the Korean mid laner to claim yet another kill.
Guess what? Just as they get that kill, Rift Herald is also barreling down on these turrets. They now get 2 in the mid lane, after they got 2 in the top lane and 1 in bottom from Kimchi himself. This is almost an insurmountable lead that has already grown before the 15-minute mark has even hit us rapid.
Now Chang is almost out of mana. He's actually going to flash, get the hit there on that fruit, heal back up from it while Stefan is forced to kind of retreat here. Now it can't tasteless escape. He's going to flash over the wall. The shock blast to follow out, takes him down. Kimchi grabs his 5th kill of the game for Korea.
Yeah, I was about to say, before that entire escapade happened in the mid lane, when the Rift Herald took down the 2 turrets, when the Korean squad managed to converge on both of those members of Serbia, that the one way that Cloudy can get help is by helping himself, by using his ultimate and by leaving this lane, by getting away from Kimchi and making an impact elsewhere on the map. But the fact that he used his ultimate onto Boxer and the fact that it didn't quite work out and they both ended up dying and giving away 2 turrets, that must be one of the most demoralizing things. Honestly, if you are on the Serbian side, then you just got to take a step back. And you just got to think, look, maybe what have we done this game? Maybe we should ban away the Jace and just look forward to the next couple.
I mean, when you think about champions that are just have players in Korea that dominate on them, you have to think back towards the days of guys like Nara Kyle, the Korean top lane Jace player, that just really showed that, I mean, there's just no... I don't think there's a player for another champion that makes it look as broken as Kyle did. But for Kimchi, he's definitely kind of studied that, and he's showcasing exactly what it means to be a strong Korean Jace player in this first game of the League of Legends Grand Finals at the 9th Esports World Championship.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that it really takes to make to differentiate a good Jace player from a great Jace player is to quite literally know every single number that he has in his kit. I mean, he's got 2 different kits because of his transform, so you need to know every single thing that you could possibly do. And the fact that Kimchi is diving to within an inch of the opponent's lives proves that he is good.
And he's still doing it. He doesn't care that the rest of the Serbian team are there because his team are getting value elsewhere. They're pushing the top lane, they're taking the dragon, they're pushing the mid lane, everything working out for Korea. So even if the rarity happens that Kimchi overextends and dies, the rest of his team have so much value elsewhere on the map.
Yeah, that's right. But if you take a look at the gold differential, it's not even certain that 2 people can necessarily 2v1 Kimchi. He is incredibly squishy right now. He's gone for double 10, but in the top lane...
Perfect saving on the
shield.
Azir. He's trying to turn it around. He's got a turret of his own. Steph and Sama are heading for the hills. Will he be able to escape? Sidesteps Chang as he tries to get in onto it. Another flag and drag away, but there's more Korean players coming his way. Whoopie heading in for another kill for South Korea. And bottom lane, you're looking for the same. Kimchi doesn't even care about Clowney's damage. He kills the turret. Now he's looking for more. Knockback there onto Clowney. Kimchi just feeling totally at home. He picks up another kill. He's looking for more. Tasteless has to head out of there while Clowney takes yet another turret. Ace in the hole. Not a lot of counterplay to that. A shutdown will need it for Serbia.
They finally managed to take down Kimchi, but at what costs? They lose out on the top side. They lose out on the middle inhibitor turret. And that just exposes their entire base to Korea before even the 18-minute mark rolls out. Rapid, we're not even going to see the Baron for another couple of minutes, and already Serbia needs to worry about the inhibitor. This is one of those scenarios in which they are just stretched way beyond their limits.
You're absolutely right, Preacher. We're closing in on a 10,000 gold lead for Korea. We haven't even seen Baron be a factor. It's not a perfect game. We still have seen signs of life from Serbia, particularly early game from their jungler Stefan, who has always been a big source of strength for their roster. But even though he has one of the strongest junglers available in the current meta, he really needs a team to help make him more potent. And so he's done his job early game. He's ganking over and over again. Picks up a 2-0 lead, and you're like, okay, well, this is the way it's supposed to work. But it was all downhill from there. And even for Boxar, the player that picked Kassadin and Tagori's Azir, you just see how well that's worked out.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you verse a 2-1-2 Azir. He just kills you solo. However, now it's 3-1-2, and you can see that he's gone for the split push. He's gone for the 1v1 build with the Nash's Tooth. All of this is working against Stefan as they're frantically trying to catch out Che, but Stefan has actually played this game well. I'm about to say that he hasn't quite made any mistakes in terms of decision-making on the map. He's left Clowney because he knows that this is a lane that Shen really cannot win. He's tried to influence his other lanes to make sure that they can get ahead, and it's just unfortunate that Clowney is in the situation that he's in.
Kimchi will win the game eventually. Serbia has tried to avoid dealing with him for about as long as they possibly have been able to. With the teleport coming through, it doesn't look like they want to put up with the shenanigans much longer. Shenhol in there on to Stefan, trying to control Gory, unable to really keep him down, very low health, but with that stand united, that was the way to start the fight. It's the divide that will finish it there. Gory crushing the rest of South Korea. More than enough damage. Oh, stickest dodge on that dark finding. Is there anything Kimchi can't do? Apparently not. It's nutritious, it's delicious, and it's good at League of Legends. You don't get much better than that.
And he just ordered himself up with every single meal available. Split push top all the way to the inhibitor, split push bot all the way as well. And now they're going to finish out the game on the 20-minute mark.
A speed run through the first game of our League of Legends Grand Championship. Has flashed into the binding style points to end things out. A 15-3 victory for South Korea over Serbia in game number 1.
And there's not a lot that you can say about that Rapid. Combined between the individual mechanics of every single one of these players, most notably Kimchi, but also everybody else, and also the bat movements, Korea just definitely owned the map for the very first game of this finals.
They certainly did. A dominating performance from start to finish. Strengths shown from Serbia, specifically from their jungler Stefan. He was given the Jarvan IV, a very strong jungle pick for a very strong player who was able to succeed, but it just wasn't enough. That top lane crumbled from the Jace onslaught from Kimchi, and really you have to look towards controlling that pick, controlling that player coming into game number 2.
Of course, and I think that if you were talking about the picks, it definitely needs to go on the ban list. I mean, this guy ain't flying anytime soon, because this Jace going to the skies against this Shen, I mean, he was solo diving him over and over again. This is a scenario in which you can't actually have a jungler in the presence, or else it could even potentially end up as a 2v1. It's just a very difficult situation. I think that the Jarvan and the Shen were very good. You just need to ban away the Jace.
We'll see if that happens in game number 2, but before that happens, we will cut out to a quick commercial break. So do not go anywhere. You don't want to miss the exciting continuance and possibly the conclusion of the League of Legends Grand Finals here at the 9th Esports World Championship.